Kapala, but you already know that. And you could actually call me Lisa Kapala-Egan if you'd like. Today I'm very excited to have some friends with me from RMLD. And I was thinking this morning when I got up, one of the first things I do is I turn on the light switch, right? And I really take that for granted. The only time I notice anything to do with power is when the power doesn't work. And you're probably like that too. So let's find out more about how Reading Municipal Light helps us and how we can help them too. So we're going to cover a whole ton of stuff. Let's meet our experts. We have with us Julie Blackley. She is Communications Manager of Reading Municipal Light Department. Hello.
Hello, Lisa.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see
and
you.
And next to her is Greg Phipps, General Manager of RMLD. So we brought the big guns today.
Glad to be here.
Me good too. Glad to have you. So I guess one of the first things we want to talk about before we get into all the heavy duty stuff is you really came here to talk to us about your electric car show. Now I know you've done this in Wilmington before with great success, but Julie, why don't you tell the folks at home when it's going to be, a little bit about it, and then Greg, we'll talk about what this electric car business is all about, right?
Sure. So that's not the main reason why we're here, but that's one of the reasons. And as you said, we've done this car show for a few years now.
Right.
And it is coming up on Sunday, August 13th from 10 to 1, and we do it in conjunction with the Wilmington Farmers Market. And it's been very successful in the past, but last year, I don't know if you recall, but inventory was really scarce for electric vehicles. Right. So in previous years, we have had dealer participation as well as customer participation. So the customers showcase their own electric vehicles. But last year, we pretty much relied on the customers to show their vehicles because dealers didn't have any available inventory. Wow. But they did not let us down. We had very eager and fervent participation, and we had a wonderful show. And then this year, since the inventory situation has improved, we have a lot of confirmed dealers that we're very excited about, as well as people returning from previous years to showcase their electric vehicles. So the one thing that's wonderful about it is that people get to hear from consumers and electric car owners. It's different than talking to a dealer. Dealers are great in raising awareness, but there's some level of pressure when you're talking to a dealer. Sure. So you can just ask, customers about their car and their usage and get, great feedback that way.
Cool. I'm curious, do you know if it was a supply chain issue as to why? Because I was thinking, was it because every electric vehicle had suddenly sold out, or was it a supply chain?
So it was a combination of things. It was the microchip shortage, so there was a shortage of electric vehicles, but also coupled with that, demand was high because gas prices were really high, so it was the perfect storm of there not being a lot, and the ones that were available, customers were snatching them up right away. So dealers didn't have any that they could just drive down for the day to show customers.
Interesting. And so this car show, folks, is going to be on the Swain Green. You guys know that. If you're local to Wilmington, you know that. The Swain Green is where the farmers market is. It's a fun little show. I've seen, WCTV has covered it before, and I've seen it. It's really great. I imagine it'll be rain or shine. Yes, okay.
We don't want to think about that. Shine. It's going to shine.
It's
be a perfect day.
Pretty nice lately, so we'll cross our fingers. So Greg, what is all the hubbub about electric vehicles? I know it's somewhat controversial. People say, oh, I don't know if they're ready for change. There's the climate mandate issue too. Tell me all about it.
Well, kind of the big picture is electric vehicles becoming more and more available. Right. Obviously, maybe 10, 15 years ago, Tesla kind of started the way. People know about the Tesla brand, created a strong following. Many of the other automobile makers, in fact, all of the other automobile makers are making the transition. They're adding, in this particular case, EV offerings to their lineup, and certain ones have targets of when they'll be all electric. Part of the reason is they're looking at the overall, not just in the United States, not just in the state of Massachusetts, I'll talk about that in just a second, but on a worldwide basis, there is an increasing interest to use electric as a propulsion vehicle, a propulsion mechanism for cars, and that for cars and trucks, that means batteries.
Right.
In the state of Massachusetts, in the spring of 2021, there was the passage of the climate bill, we call it affectionately, and we appreciate it. We helped influence how it ended up being written. The 2021 climate bill, it was known as Senate Bill 9. It had a whole bunch of implications in it, had a lot of implications in terms of the power that we provide to our customers. We'll talk more about that later, the non-carbon mandates. But one of the other things that it did have in there, it also looked at buildings, and we'll talk a little about air source heat pumps in a little bit while.
Great.
And it also talked about transportation. Key thing that it did on transportation is it established a target that in 2035, it's now 2023, that's 12 years down the road. It seems like a long time, but it's probably just around the corner. But the provision was basically that starting in 2035, that all light-duty vehicles, new light-duty vehicles, SUVs, minivans, sedans, light-duty trucks would all need to be powered by, or could not be powered by an internal combustion engine, which is what the predominance is today.
Right.
So that was kind of the legislative driver. But the technology continues to evolve. The primary piece, electric motors have been around for over 100 years.
Right.
Batteries have been around for a long, long time. The very original original vehicles were actually electric. So it's not, the technology continues to evolve, but it's gotten to a point where it's actually practical and affordable.
Okay.
And people talk about the affordability. There's a wide range of different vehicles, and there's a lot of different use patterns as well.
Okay.
Typical people drive somewhere between 12 and 13,000 miles a year.
Right.
That means they typically drive somewhere between 30 and 50 miles a day, and that's well within a range of an electric vehicle that's somewhere between 150 and 350 miles per fill-up. Where
Okay.
fill-up is plugging your car into
Right.
either a home outlet or a public charger or a DC fast charger. We can talk about more about that later. But electric vehicles are coming, and again, it's a combination of customer interest and manufacturer supply. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but if you look at the sales, it's, I think right now in Massachusetts, roughly around 5% of all new vehicle sales are electric, which
Okay.
is not an insignificant number.
And so the main reason for that, at least the emotional reason for that, has to do with carbon, correct? Or
Carbon.
climate change.
Yep, climate and carbon. Those are key mechanisms, but there are other mechanisms. So that's probably the key interest and the key initial piece. But if you were to look at typical driving, electric vehicles tend to be less expensive to operate than gas-powered vehicles. And again, there's a role for gas-powered vehicles over the next 15 or 12 to 15 years. But electric vehicles, particularly in an area like Reading, where our rates are relatively speaking very low, it's more economical to drive electric in terms of the operating cost. So to fill it up, is somewhere between 30% to 50% of what it would cost to run a traditional gas vehicle, just from a fuel perspective. That was more extreme last year when gas prices and the pump were not quite twice as much as they were now, but we were looking at almost $4.50 a gallon. Now it's $3.50 a gallon.
So the obvious question would be, what if we run out of electricity to manufacture, to have?
That's
that would
why
be
we're
the first
here.
thing I would think of. So
Yeah.
what if that happens?
So I think that opens up your first comment, which is people presume electricity is always there, right? And it's only when it's not there.
Sure.
So RMLD, Reading Municipal Light Department, is we're a community-owned electric power company. We serve Reading, Wilmington, North Reading, and Linfield Center. We're one of 41 public power entities, or MLPs as they're known, municipal light plants in Massachusetts. We happen to be one of the two larger ones. We're one of the very few that serve multiple towns. But our responsibility in our charter, as it is for most of the MLP, is reliable, low cost, non-carbon. Reliable, the light should always be on. Low cost, we should be very affordable, and non-carbon gets into the compliance piece of it. So our responsibility is to make sure that we have enough supply on the wholesale side. We buy power on the wholesale market. We have long-term contracts with a variety of different generators spread around the states.
Is it a sustainable enough resource that we won't run out?
Yeah,
I won't hold you to that.
Yeah, so
But I think
we're not
that's
going to.
some of the hubbub I hear from folks is, I don't want a charging station in my house, or there aren't enough of them around, or what if we run out of power?
Yeah, so we tend not to hear the issue of running out of power. There's going to be a transition as we go. So by 2050, that 2021 climate bill, the goal is to get to we'll say net zero, but basically nearly 100% non-carbon energy.
Okay.
That is achievable. The challenge is going to be the transition between now and then, and how do we make it through the transition? By definition, well, I shouldn't say by definition, the common uses of sources of power on the non-carbon front are solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear.
Right.
Nuclear is very stable, very steady state. It has its pros and cons, but from a reliability perspective, it's got a 98% plus capacity factor. Compare that to solar. Solar is less than 20% capacity factor. If the sun's out, it works great. If the sun's not out, it doesn't work.
Right.
Sometimes it's windy, sometimes it's not, right? What's neat about, they all have the different patterns. Hydro has its own pattern as well. It tends to be strongest in the springtime, and it tends to, as you look at different rivers and streams, they tend to be least volume in the August time period. And then it starts to rain again in the fall and they fill up again.
So you're trying to say it's the most reliable means next to what we already have, somewhat.
Everyone has a different, so our responsibility, going back to your core question of reliability, our responsibility is to put together a mix, a portfolio that's driven by geography, type, size, who the operator is. We look at all those factors in terms of putting together our portfolio. We have a very, very strong portfolio, and it is very non-carbon. We're ahead of the curves. But I think back to your other comment in terms of will there be enough, our responsibility is to, again, that's part of our core charter, our responsibility is to make sure we have enough. So we are.
So I am no longer going to worry about that because I know you are guiding the ship.
Yeah, right, so exactly right.
But we can help as consumers. Let's talk about Shred the Peak.
Yeah,
Sure.
please.
So just before we get off electric vehicles, I just want to point out that we do have public charging stations located in
Yes.
Wilmington. So
Yes.
there's one at Town Hall and another one at the Wilmington Public Library
Right.
that RMLD manages.
Cool. I did see some articles in some
Great.
press about that, which thank you for making us all aware of all that.
course.
I also want to say your website. If you folks have questions after the show, because we only have 30 minutes, we can't fit in the plethora of stuff we'd like to talk about. Check out their website because it's pretty thorough, and I know you're rebuilding it, but anything you probably ever want to know after this show would be there. So tell me about this Shred the Peak. I get a nice little email every couple of days or so telling me to be better about my power usage. Who thought of that, or how did people come up with that? My goodness, it's been around, it seems, for a long, long time.
It has. It predates me. And
Right.
it's something that it's not just unique to RMLD. A lot of other most electric utilities have adopted it, but it is a voluntary customer program. So RMLD, it's called Shred the Peak, and what it entails is that a customer will opt in for alerts, which right now are over email, and they're also on our social channels. And once a customer opts in, they will get a notification on what we designate as peak days, and those are days, and in the summer, they're typically the hottest days, so they are days where people consume the most electricity, and on those days is when power is most expensive. So on these peak days, RMLD will have to buy more power to satisfy the peak, and it comes at a high cost. So we encourage customers to sign up for those alerts, and you'll be notified when those peak days are, and we provide tips on how you can conserve your electricity during those times. So they're pretty, basic tips like don't run your washing machine or your dishwasher during those times. And then also we encourage you to turn your thermostat up a few degrees. Like that'll make a big difference as well. So we have a number of tips where people can help conserve.
So is that why people's bills fluctuate so much, partly because of the peak hours usage and such? Yes, you're both sort of
Probably more tied to usage. So
Okay.
So our rates don't tend to change by hour. They're consistent. There's two factors that drive a customer's bill. One is what the rates are, and B, what the usage is. And as Julie mentioned, right, air conditioning is typical in the summer, particularly July and August. And air conditioning it can be as high as 40% of a monthly bill if you look at the individual components that make it up.
Okay.
And then if you look at springtime, there's not a lot of heating, there's not a lot of cooling. So in the spring months and the fall is when the bills tend to be lowest because the usage is the lowest.
Right.
And then obviously in the wintertime, depending upon how you heat your home, but there's a
Sure.
little bit of heating increase there. So the usage is really what drives the
Okay.
variability of the monthly bills.
Will us being better consumers, shredding the peak, help with burnout? Or, when brownout, will it help? Does it help with that? If we're not overloading the system with too much stuff, does it affect that at all?
It could, but we design, so, we constantly maintain and upgrade the distribution network.
Okay.
And we leave a buffer so that we don't get to a point where there are points in times where we can overload certain parts of the circuit.
Okay.
And we always, we continue to monitor that and make adjustments to the size of the transformers and the wires and how many circuits are on it.
Okay.
So that's not the real driver. The real driver is because we are a public entity, we're a not-for-profit. So whatever small profit we generate goes back to invest in the upgrades, et cetera.
I see.
We don't write checks to shareholders. We don't have any shareholders. So the actual cost that we have, as Julie was mentioning, go back to the customers. So usage is a key driver, and if you can, as Julie mentioned, during peak hours is when energy tends to be most costly.
Right.
And if we keep our load down during it, then we reduce the amount of high-cost energy that we put into the system, which keeps the overall rate low.
Okay. If everyone does their part, will it really make a difference?
Yes, that's
the
what
whole
it
point,
is,
right?
That is the whole point.
Do you think that people are doing that? Do you see people being more conscientious and aware than they have been in the past? I'm going to say yes, because
Yeah.
I grew up in the Wilmington area,
Right.
and we didn't really think about that
Right.
very much.
And I think generally people are more eco-conscious now.
Sure.
Energy Star appliances
I was
used to
just gonna
be,
say that, too.
a small subset, but now I feel like it's hard to buy a non-Energy
Right.
Star appliance.
Which
so
is good
just
news.
Yeah.
right in general, what we're buying is taking less energy, but I think people are aware of how much energy they're using,
Right.
and I think it is making a difference, and we are starting to move the needle. But we obviously want to raise more awareness and get more
Sure.
people to sign up for alerts.
Did COVID affect how much electricity was used?
In fact, yes.
Can you tell me how?
Yeah,
in about 2 minutes?
In a nutshell, there was
Because more people were home.
Yeah,
But
so-
I don't know, then the businesses were closed, so did it sort of
but the
level
businesses still had to keep, they still had to have air conditioning. They didn't maybe have as much plug load.
Right,
But
right.
the buildings were still operational, maybe not as high.
Yeah.
But we did see a small increase in terms of net load. It was primarily on the residential side between 2019, 2020 in particular, and then that continued into 2021.
Right.
So yes, net load
Partly
did
because
increase.
everybody was locked down.
And working
And also
from home.
devices,
Right.
all the devices that we
Yeah.
use.
But primarily, it was the fact that the buildings where people tended to work were still running, even though people weren't in them, and
Right.
there were more load at home. So
Okay.
the residential probably came up, the commercial and industrial, well, the industrial pretty much stayed the same because people were still trying to produce stuff.
Right.
But the commercial office space came down only a very slight amount, and the residential came up. And
Interesting.
net, it was a little bit higher.
Because I'm sure people weren't really thinking about that. There was
No.
so much else to
There's
worry
lots,
about. That was
yeah.
probably one of the last things on people's minds.
Make sure the lights are on, right?
Right, because
Yeah.
you're stuck in your house. You
Yeah.
can't leave. You can't go anywhere. All right, let's talk about Seabrook Solar.
You want to start?
What is it? What are you
Sure.
doing? What's
Yep.
going on? It's all over your page.
So we recently signed a purchase power agreement with the town of Seabrook and NextEra Energy, and we are going to be building a solar array on, so it's the Seabrook, it's called Seabrook 2, but it's an existing nuclear facility that we get power from. So now it's
Okay.
going, when it is operational, I believe in third quarter 2024.
Mid to end of next year.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be a mixed-use facility where we will get nuclear and solar power from.
That's kind of interesting. So you're actually using solar to make electricity.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew it could even be done? That's pretty cool. I'm sure people love that.
About 10% of our portfolio right now is solar powered.
Great.
And we have we are encouraging customers on the residential side and also on the industrial side to look at adding solar to their houses or their buildings. We have
Okay.
strong incentives, which are also on the website.
And we
Yes.
recently did a webinar for our customers just about home solar, and we answered, I think, over 50 questions.
Right.
You know, people are so curious. That's the question I probably get the most at community events is about installing solar and what the process is. So there's definitely a lot of interest.
Right. And I think it's come a long way since
It
its
has.
inception. I see more and more homes.
Right.
When you're looking at drone footage, you can see more and more homes with the solar.
And the incentives are going up too. So
Good.
that
And the cost of the systems are coming down as well.
All right, you promised we'd talk about air source heat pump.
Oh, yes.
What is that? Why do I need to know about that?
So one of the things that there's again multiple factors happening simultaneously. The climate bill is encouraging buildings to become less carbon generating, and in New England and in our territory in particular, or not in New England in particular, and we're a good representation of it. But the majority of homes are being heated by either oil or natural gas, both
Right.
carbon-based sources. What basically an air source heat pump does is it uses electricity to heat or cool a home.
Okay.
And what a big significant difference is between an air source heat pump and a traditional piece of heating or cooling equipment. Well, it's more like a piece of cooling equipment, but heating equipment is that an air source heat pump literally moves heat from either moves it from inside the building to outside in the cooling mode to keep the inside cool, or in the case of the wintertime, it takes heat from the outside, and even if it's cold and snowy outside, if it's 20 degrees, there's still heat out there, and it moves heat from outside into the home.
Oh.
So a heat pump is inherently more efficient because it's just moving existing heat either into the building or out of the
see.
building.
So is this more for commercial use or it's homes too?
Residential, small commercial, and then when you get the chillers are the larger industrial ones.
Okay.
But the big growth right now is in residential
Okay, so new construction. But you
And-
can probably
and-
have your house remodeled too, right?
and retrofits.
Cool. Are there rebates for stuff like that?
Please, Julie. Yeah.
yes, we do have rebates. I believe it's.
We
goodness,
won't
the
quote
numbers.
you on
Yes,
it.
but we have.
$1,000 a ton. Yeah. So, but it's a strong rebate.
Yeah, that's nice. So to find out more about that, by the way, we just mentioned it briefly, you can look on the website and there's a whole section for rebates that tell you all about how that works. You guys do tree trimming too? Tell me about that.
Yep. So we have so again, as part of the responsibility for reliability, we need to make sure that the lines, our power lines on top of utility poles, are not shorted out, are not brought down by tree limbs. We love trees. We continue to plant them, but our responsibility is to make sure that they don't interfere with the lines.
Right.
And we talk about tree trimming, right? So we try and trim growth to keep it away from the lines. So when you have windy days or stormy days, they don't take lines down. Trees are the number one outage cause of outages
Really?
of a typical distribution network. So, we work very closely with the town arborist
Right.
to put together a plan. We have guidelines, et cetera. We have professionals that actually are trained to work both around utility lines, but also they have training from the arborist. So it's a very active program. It is constant program. Trees grow constantly, which is a good
Right.
thing. And our goal is just to make sure that we
Now,
protect
that's
the lines.
funny because I thought that was handled by the municipality or
No,
the folks that do all of the shoveling and all of that stuff. But you guys work in tandem.
Yep,
with
we work
them.
very
That's
closely with
amazing.
the DPU departments.
That's what I was thinking
Yeah,
of, yeah.
no, exactly right, in all 4 towns.
Great.
But again, the goal behind tree trimming is to make sure that they don't cause outages. And we have a very good program, but it's also helpful because we don't have eyes everywhere. So when customers notice, hey, I see trees hanging over it,
Right.
we encourage them to call us, email us, or whatever to let us know.
Okay.
But we have a systematic program, but
Okay.
some trees grow faster than others. So
That's true. And when they do call you, they can set up a free home assessment. Let's talk about that.
yes,
Yes, so we have a partner, Energy New England, who does free home audits. So they can come in and tell you, in your home what can be improved for efficiency's sake. It can be large things like new windows to small improvements like air sealing. So they will give you a report basically telling you what you can do, and then you can choose to take
I've
action.
had it done, and it was fascinating.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was
Things
really
you-
fun.
Things you learn.
Right.
Yeah. And I think they even gave us some light bulbs or some special stuff to help us out, which was a nice little freebie. And it takes, 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes
Yep,
to do.
less than an hour.
It's worth it just to,
Yeah.
to check that out,
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about today that's a burning desire for you to share with the community?
So back to the energy evaluation
Yes.
program. So one thing that we're doing right now is that in the public libraries in our service territory, we have basically a kit that helps you, measure the efficiency of your home, but we're in the process of revamping that. So that's
Okay.
something that'll be coming in the next few months, and you can go to the library. So maybe you can't schedule a home audit, or you can maybe do this first before.
Okay.
And that the box will have a lot of tools like caulking guns and leak detection. So
Excellent. And if you need more information, you can get the handy dandy newsletter, which will tell you all about that. You can see that on the website too. I did my homework.
Wonderful.
Greg, what do you want to tell
Yeah, one other
us?
thing is that the people that work at RMLD, we are fascinated by the opportunity to both serve the community,
Yes.
but as you probably got a sense, this energy world is changing fast.
True.
We internally call it the Wild West. It is, and it requires capable, interested, engaged individuals who want to help us figure out all the answers.
Sure.
They're fascinating problems, and so on our website we are always recruiting new people. Jobs are posted there. We have a strong intern program, co-op program. Part of the goal there is to introduce more of this electric utility and what's happening now,
Right.
and what we're preparing for. To take them back to their schools. They contribute to RMLD and the projects that they do, whether it's the summer or the co-op programs, a 6-month program. So there's a, and that's just one example.
Yeah.
We our focus is to make sure that our team is energized and equipped to do the best job in terms of serving the community. But we are always in recruiting, looking for people that want to help solve these. We think they're fascinating problems.
Yes,
So
and you can find that on the website.
it's also on the website.
As well. What's good about that, too, as an aside, is electricians that are electricians right now are going to need training to service these things. And I don't know if any schools are really teaching, like the tech, Shawshene Tech, where I went. I don't know if they're really focusing on that. They may be, but it might
It's
be
starting
good
to do more
get
and more.
some
We're starting to
from
promote
the
that. Yeah.
experts.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So that's another way to do
Wow.
it. So it's at the end of the day, it's about serving the people, and it's about people serving people. But it's just it is a fascinating industry. It
I
truly
love it.
is.
Well, thank you guys for shedding some light on the power world and electricity. And thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out their website if you want more information. What is it? RMLD.com.
.com. Yeah. There you
Easy
go.
peasy, right? Thank you so much for watching. And just reminding you, you've been watching Where's Wilmington. The next time somebody asks you, Where's Wilmington? You tell them right here and right here on WC.